caring for your kids. Now, I'd like to say that caring for my kids, I got that down just right when I was going through my divorce, but unfortunately I didn't. And I'm going to share with you my experience, and hopefully you can learn from my mistakes. There's 5 factors that determine the outcome for your children when going through divorce. The number 1 is conflict. The more you can minimize the conflict with your ex, the better. The children pick up on that conflict. I know you may be going through a custody battle, but they feel the tension in the air. And I'm ashamed to admit it, but when I was going through my divorce and I would get to see my kids, the courts recommended having a third party present when the kids were being either dropped off or picked up from the mom or dad. And I remember my brother sometimes being the third party, and he referred to this as the prisoner exchange. And looking back at that, I actually feel terrible about that, he was thinking of it as like my children were prisoners and they were being exchanged from one warden to the next. It's just a terrible thought looking back at that and thinking, the conflict that was going through between their mother and me and the effect that had on my children. So the more you can minimize the conflict and be cordial when you're picking them up with your ex or they're being dropped off, the better. The number 2 factor is how much do they get to see the parent, whether it be the mom or the dad. If the parent is suddenly cut out of the child's life, that does have an effect. If you're getting just to see them a few days a week, it does have an effect on the children. So that is why I personally worked towards joint custody and was happy that I got it. Now, you may not be able to have that, but the time that you have with them, you got to make the best of that. Number 3 is emotional stability of the parent, because you need to be emotionally stable when you're caring for your children. So that's why number 1 is you got to take care of yourself. Get the support you need. Body, mind, and spirit. You got to be taking care of your physical health. The stability of the parent, whether it be physically, mentally, or spiritually, does have an effect on the children. So you want to be as strong in those areas as possible, as healthy in those areas as possible for your children, for your children's sake. That is actually part of caring for your children, is caring for yourself first. Number 4 is economic and financial stability. Obviously, if you're trying to take care of 2 households now with paying support, it does have an effect. But you've got to make the best of it. You got to look for programs that you could maybe get your kids involved in. I used to bring my boys to the library. They had programs there that didn't cost anything, story time. There is a way to work around that when you're feeling the financial pinch. And finally, number 5 is creating a stable environment. You want to create as stable environment as possible for your children when they're with you. Now it's out of your hands when they're with their mom. What environment they're in. You're doing the best you can when you have them. You make it as stable as possible when they're with you. This is the best way you could care for your children. Minimize the conflict. The amount of time that you get to spend with them, make the most of it. Be emotionally stable. You've got to keep your emotions stable, or your children will pick up on that. If you're all over the place, they sense that. The economic and financial stability, again, you got to look for whatever resources and help you get. For me, I was living on a shoestring budget, but I found programs that really didn't cost. If I got my children and we went to the park, went camping, it was peanuts. It didn't cost much at all to have a good time when they were with me. And it's really the time that you spend with them that makes the difference. You don't have to be buying the fancy toys, trinkets, or gifts like that. That's okay. Now, sometimes what happens is parents tend to try to overcompensate and buy their children a lot of gifts. And that's not always a good thing. Sometimes it's better if you just, the time you spend with them, you participate in activities they like. It might be playing Game Boy. It might be doing something that they enjoy doing. Just as corny as it sounds, just playing catch in the backyard with the football. And number 5 was stable environment. Create as stable environment as possible for your children when they're with you. And it will help improve the situation you're in. Lean on that support team. Make sure you're taking care of your body, mind, and spirit. Growth and contribution. Big factors. Your children pick up on more what you do than what you say. So if you're growing and you're learning and you're contributing, if you're volunteering at the baseball or their little league team, for me, I know my children were on midget football and baseball. If you're become a coach, you actually get to see them more because you're a coach. If you're on the PTA, if you volunteer for programs where the kids are having a full field trip, all these things I did. So it got me more time with my children. And if you become on better terms with your ex, which I did, I said, I'll pick him up and bring him to practice every day. I didn't miss a single, every day I would pick my children up from either midget football and pick them up to bring them to football, pick them up after and stay there for the practice or little league. So if you participate in those other activities, even if you do not have joint custody, which I eventually did, you'll get to spend more time with them. If the kids are having a field trip, volunteer, be one of the parents that go on the field trip. So there is a way to work around the system if you're not getting, joint custody. Those activities are just, you're being a parent and you could be present in their lives. And for me, it actually worked out that I got better than 50% because I would volunteer every chance I got. When they're with you, if you could create a stable, loving environment, that will have the greatest impact. So these are the steps you got to follow, and it will help. If you'd like to reach out to me, I'd be happy to further coach you. Don't forget about your support team. That's a critical part. Don't be afraid to reach out to somebody on your support team or reach out to me. I'll be happy to meet up with you via Zoom or on the phone. Remember, taking care of your children is the most important thing you're going to be doing, but you need to take care of yourself first. Keep the faith and stay strong, and don't be afraid to reach out for help.